right now. So this, if for everybody except for Mary, this should look pretty familiar. This Decades Project PowerPoint. The link won't work. Click on that, see if that works. Looks like it should. All right, so Garrett, if you're here, let me know. All right. Anyway, so we're going to be working on our Decades project. This should look familiar. We've done this with the 1920s. We're going to do this, a similar thing. There's going to be a few changes here for basically your choice of decade that we've been talking about. I'm going to post all of this information on our history classroom with the video, of course, of me talking right now. It worked now, Garrett. Awesome. Glad to have you here live. We still have a little bit less than what I normally have in here, so I'll keep an eye on that. And if not, then people are going to have to watch this replay to get 100% of the information. So if you're here live right now and you're paying attention, then that's awesome. That's another thing you don't have to do. So we're going to be talking. You're going to be creating another presentation about the culture of one of the decades of history that we've been talking about. Your choices for this, it's going to be up to you. You get to choose which decade you want to look at. You could choose the 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s. Some of these we've talked about extensively already during history class. Even if it's not in person, on here we've talked a lot about the 50s, a lot about the 60s. We've just barely started getting into the 70s. We haven't really talked about the 80s yet at all. So it is your choice on what you want to do for that. You can choose any of those decades. It is up to you. The first one we did was all about the 1920s. So we're going to kind of run through some of this. And you're going to be responsible for getting each one of these things done. I have a rubric at the end you could take a look at. This is going to be due 1 week from today. Next Wednesday is when this is due. So Monday, we are going to have normal class where I'm going to be going through the start of Unit 16, where you're going to come, you're going to take some notes, but I'm not going to give you your daily homework. Same thing for Wednesday. We're going to come, we're going to do notes. I'm not going to give you homework for that. So basically, you're going to have to just make sure you are getting this done. It's a little bit bigger, obviously. I'm more or less having it take the place of 3 different homeworks. So if you want to think of it that way, that's totally fine. History homework, I know, usually doesn't take as long as some other classes, but you're going to need to make sure you're putting a lot of time and effort into this. Okay. Something else I wanted to make sure we're talking about is last week's assessment. For the most part, really good job. I've graded most of those, returned most of those. If for whatever reason your grade's not showing up, you haven't received that email, and you're wondering what you got, shoot me an email and I'll let you know. If you did not receive another assignment talking about doing the redo, then you're good, unless you're somebody who turned that in yesterday or has yet to turn it in at all. If that's the case, I'm still haven't caught up on all those grades. If for whatever reason you didn't reach the goal that we're setting forth, that 80% or whatever, then you're going to have to redo it. Mary, do you want me to do what? The assessment? I think you already already took a look at that and did you do did you do that already? I'll talk with you in a little bit, I think. Because what I'm actually going to do is after I'm done with this, after I'm done on Twitch, I'm going to just go into our normal Zoom call link, and I'm going to let you guys come in and ask any questions about getting stuff done. Because I know some people have had some issues with getting things submitted, seeing how can I check that I'm completely done on all of this different stuff. Or if you have a question about the project, if you have a question about anything, you can come and let me know. If you have a question about a different class and you're like, I'm not sure if I'm all caught up on this, can you help me figure out where all that is? It'd be perfect for you guys to come in and just work with me for a little bit. I'm just going to open that up to whoever wants to go in there and work with me and chat about all this kind of stuff. You don't have to, but it's going to be available to you after we're done. here. I'll give you a reminder at the end. So if you're here live now, that's going to be an option for you so I can help you out. If you have any specific questions about history, that's perfect time for you to ask, okay? Anyway, partners. I know we've talked about this a little bit. I'm going to allow you to work with one partner. It is optional to work with a partner, so if you can't find that, can't work that out, that's fine. And I'm going to put this on 100% on you guys. If you are choosing to work with a partner, it is your responsibility to organize that, to work out a way to work together, whether that's, doing a video chat or talking on the phone or just sharing a link and, dividing up what you guys are going to do. That's fine. It is not required for you to work with a partner, so I'm not going to allow groups of 3. It is just going to be with you and somebody else. After I'm done with this, I'm going to post a thread on my live stream on my chat at chat.google.com. That's just going to say partner selection. So you and your partner have to go on there and comment who your partner is going to be. So, if you're partnering with whoever, you're gonna go on there and say I am partnering with them, and they're gonna go on there and say I am partnering with you. Does it have to be from your class period? No, not at all. It's a very good question. Whoever you would like to work with, that's totally fine with me. I haven't opened it up yet, Kate. It will be after I'm done with explaining everything. I'm going to give everybody a chance to, talk with whoever they need to. Make sure you both sides understand that that's going to be the case. Where you comment the partner, I'm going to open up a new a thread after we're done with this. I will say, please put your partners down in the comments. Can you do 50s? That's totally fine. Honestly, you don't even need to let me know. Just on your title slide when you're doing this, if you're going to do a slides presentation like this, you're going to put 1950s culture project or decades project and just put that on there, and that will be totally fine. Your choice, though, and make sure your partner, and of course, make sure your partner's on the same page. So if you are actually working with a partner, please put what decades you're going to do. What are the decades that are your options? 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Your choice. So that's the basics of everything. Does it have to be a decade we went over? 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. That's it. Those are your 4 options. We're not doing 90s, 2010, 2000s, or 2010s quite yet. Maybe we'll get there, but not at this point. All right. I'm going to keep going now. So with our presentation, if you have other questions, this is a great time for you to put those in the chat. I'll get to them if I can answer them. Otherwise, again, after we're done here, I'm going to open up a Zoom so you guys can, meet face to face and talk with me about whatever issues you have, whether it's the project or otherwise. All right. So general overview. Again, I didn't change a ton on this. The biggest thing that I've changed is going to be on the next slide. You and group are going to create a short presentation, displays aspects of the culture from chosen decade. You could create a slides presentation, Prezi, or any other approved method to display your project. You are going to highlight the following aspects of the decade's culture and just the overall history of this decade. So you're going to highlight the timeline, fashion, clothing trends, fads, music, popular media, celebrities. I'm going to make this whole presentation available to you guys on Google Classroom. Mary, as you said, I'm going to post this whole thing. Actually, I think the original version may still even be available on there, but I will post this whole thing so you have that when you're working. Do not worry. You don't have to be taking notes on this right now. So you're going to be working on those things. I'm going to talk about them in detail. So the first thing that's going to be noticeably different than our presentation for over the 20s is I want you to include a timeline, okay, of major events going on during this period. Now, I did a brief one. I want you to have at least seven events from your decade. That is highlighted in the rubric that is coming up later. 7. I just did 5 because I did this quickly. Do something. You can make this look however you'd like. It needs to be organized. It needs to be readable. I would like there to be pictures, ideally, of major events that took place during this decade. So you can see here, I include the specific day, if that's applicable, and a picture that goes along with each one of those from 1940 and 1950, and putting them approximately where they would land on this timeline. Okay, you could do a similar thing make it look like this. You can make it look however you want. It is your choice. You can even do it by hand and upload a picture. For that, that's totally fine as well. It is your choice on how you want to make this look. But you need to include at least 7 events from your decade. And these could be specific things we've talked about in class. If you're doing like the 1980s, you want to do more modern stuff, then you're going to probably have to research that in your textbook or online. Again, your textbook is going to be a great resource here to go through. It talks about a lot of the culture stuff. It talks a lot about the history. So especially if you're going ahead to the 70s or 80s, reading through your textbook may be a very, very helpful thing for you to do. So you're getting all of the correct and complete information that we need to see there. Fashion trends. This is the same thing as we did last time. Provide examples of typical and exceptional fashion. So something that might be pretty normal, something that might be a little weird, but also defines fashion during that decade. Talk about why that rose to prominence and any extra meaning behind it, and be sure to provide visual examples. I know my slide right here is just a bunch of text. But for you need to make sure you're including these visuals on pretty much every slide that you're doing, so it really helps us understand exactly what we're looking at. Fads. So fads, we've talked about these in the 1920s, but they are activities or fashions that are taken up with great passion for a short period of time. Again, we talked about things like Harlem Shake, bottle flipping. You could go on and on for recent fads in the past decade, things that were that were popular for a short period of time. Take a look at least one. What was it, and why was it really popular during this time? Music. You're going to take a look at some popular music of the decade. Talk about some popular bands or artists. I want you to make sure you're listing multiple bands and artists here. Talk about what this meant about American culture. Why was this popular? Why was this genre of music really, really prominent? Why did that rise to prominence? What did that look like? You may. I would like you to choose at least one school appropriate song to play during your presentation. Again, we're not going to necessarily all be giving these live, but if you did a great job and you really do want to give this as a presentation to the class, I might be able to get you on here for one class period and have you go through that. It's up to you. Again, we'll still work that out as we we move forward. But highlight a piece of music at least, so I can really make sure you've been researching this and looking into all of the information you need you need to have for this presentation. Popular media. So examine popular media of the decade: movies, television shows, or other forms of entertainment. So so for 50 through 80s, you should have no problem finding popular media during this time. Talk about how that was consumed during the decade. If you highlight at least that one piece, talk about why it was so popular, why it was brand new, what did that look like. Go into detail about what it is, why it was so popular. Talk about what trends there were. So if you're looking through, 70s and 80s, you may actually recognize some movies or TV shows, and you could talk about how that's maybe even influenced TV to this day. Okay, that would be that would be great for that one. Celebrities. So I believe this is the last one. Yeah, celebrities. You're going to choose one popular celebrity, one person who was popular for whatever reason. It could be sports, it could be music, it could be movies, TV shows, whatever. You're going to choose one person from that decade. Write about how they rose to fame, what their role in popular culture was. Just a short little bio. It does not have to be extensive, but just take a look at them and why they were a face that almost anybody would recognize during that decade in America. All right, so those are all things that we've talked about before. None of that should be new unless you're Mary. So you can go through and look at all of that when I post it. And this is going to be our rubric here. So you can see I have from 0 to 6 points. I know 2 points each for this one. So you could sometimes find a place in the middle if you're for any of these. But basically, you need to make sure you are meeting all of these objectives. That's what I'm going to be looking at. So for timeline includes at least 7 events from the decade with details. Pictures are included. Timeline is easy to read. Fashion trends, fads, music, media, celebrity, they all go, and they're basically just getting all the information down for each one of these topics. Again, this will be accessible to you when I post it on there, so you can look on there and look at it in detail. It's nothing crazy. It's what you'd probably be expecting. Um, yeah, if you have any questions about that, let me know. Why 2 to 4 points? Again, if you do not meet the objective, which is 80%, then you're going to be you're going to redo this. You're going to fix this. You wouldn't have to start from scratch necessarily, but you may have to fix this, and that will take some time. If I feel like you go forth and put something that is not even that doesn't look like it had any effort in it at all, then you may have to start from scratch, and I'll give you a different decade to work on. But if like let's say I can tell you put effort in here, you just didn't necessarily do the best job on each one of these things, I might just have you fix it. But again, I don't want to necessarily do that. Can we do the 1600s? No. All right. Let's see. Here's an example of one that we did already. I know it's a little different because it doesn't have the timeline in it. So, Sunny Dakota, Shamir, Matthew, I just chose yours because you did a pretty good job. So we talk about music, popular types of music, and why that rose to prominence. Dance, you could see talking about dances, the Charleston, some of the famous artists at the time. Here's a short profile on a celebrity, Jack Dempsey, and why he was so popular. Fashion trends, you could see a lot of detailed pictures here, highlighting women's fashion trends, men's fashion trends. Very good way to do this, including pictures and what those exactly mean, what those meant. Different fads. So, we talked about these in the 1920s: flagpole sitting, marathon dancing, all of that good stuff. Slang terms. We didn't do this one, so not as important. Popular media. So we talked about. You could see we talked about radio, movies, and sports. Kind of was all grouped into that as well. Yeah, there you go. Just a short, quick presentation from you guys and what that looked like. So that's just an example of something that you may see for. Did I close out mine? I think I did. A second. Anyway, so that's just a quick example of something you might see for this. If you have any other questions, specifically, let me know right now. Otherwise, I'm going to go on to, I think that will be probably all we need necessarily talk about for today in here. I know it's a little shorter. And if you're watching this on broadcast on either on YouTube or Twitch, you have any questions, please let me know, either through live stream or on Google Classroom, or sorry, the live stream thread or on Google Classroom. Presenting these, we might have a chance to present these. I don't know if I want to necessarily it's going to be a lot of work to have you guys all video yourselves presenting. If you are somebody who likes to present, I can almost certainly say I can find an opportunity for you to do so. We'll see. Not necessarily, but that's why it's important. It's a very good question. It's why it's very important that you include all the information that you find on your presentation. Can we just share our screen on Zoom? That's exactly, Devin. That's exactly one of those possibilities that we could do. When is it due, Hayden? Next week, Wednesday. You have a full week to work on it. Percy, please don't bark. All right. We'll see. If you really want to, we'll probably find a chance to do so. Either way, you need to be familiar enough with your presentation that if I did ask you to present it, you would be able to. But include all the information, all the relevant information. It does not need to be one slide for each one of these topics. If you're like, well, I'm having trouble fitting, all the fashion trends onto one slide, do multiple slides. That's totally fine. Do as many as you need to. I encourage that. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna go off the recording. So if you're watching on YouTube, again, shoot me any questions if you're confused about any of this.